Hello, I'm back again. I'm Feby Salianto. Currently, I'm taking an executive MBA class in IPMI International Business School in Jakarta, Indonesia. I create this video as one of the final assignment in the Global Economy and International Business class led by my distinguished lecturer, Insinyur Yulita Fairina Susanti, MSc PhD, and Professor Insinyur Roy Sembel MBA, PhD, CSA, CID, CIIM. The contents of the video consists of two mind map of our learning during the class, as well as the other insights from the course. I will start with, you see here on the top one, we are talking about the absolute and comparative advantage. These are actually the main factors also that driving the global trades or global economy. Absolute meanings that the country able to produce much more than others, while comparative, some countries having ability to produce with lower opportunity costs. And this comparative advantage is also somehow driven by the condition of the consumer as well as the producer surplus. And consumer and producer surplus driving also the implementation or the volume of the importation as well as the exportation. And at the end, the importation, exportation is actually talking also about the tariff and quota applied by the government. There's a very good case that we learned during the class on the Nike versus New Balance. How is the contradiction among these two companies for the tariff that at that time would be implemented by US government. We understand that Nike has operation manufacturing outside the US, while New Balance is actually having manufacturing inside US. So this tariff definitely will impact differently for those two companies. It's very interesting case. The other things that we learn is also on the GDP, GDP PPP, which is the purchasing power parity. With the current situation, Indonesia has ranked number 7 in the world, which is quite high. And then that's actually driven by the development that massively happened in Indonesia. At the time, Indonesia, or maybe starting 2020, Indonesia is actually already having a debt to the GDP surpassing 30%. It is a very, aggressive move that Indonesia is doing. So, talking on the currency, we having a deep dive on how the currency exchange rate is actually happen. If you see on the bottom there, the inflation rate, the relative income, tariff and quota is actually impact to the demand and supply of the goods and service from foreign as well as in domestics. On the other hand, the risk perceptions, interest rates, and government rules on the capital flow impacting also to the demand and supply on the stocks in the foreign as well as in the domestics, which both of it is actually driving the demand and supply of the foreign and domestic currency. So this demand and supply of the currency making the exchange rate is actually dynamic time to time. That's why in the global economy and international business we talk about the currency risk that we have to consider. In the global economy, we're also talking about the transaction exposure, economic exposure, and translation exposure when we are doing that business. And on the other hand, we talk also about the supply and demand theory, definitely. And then also the impact of the trade war to the international business, impact of the global pandemic to the international business and the digital era, and the most popular one now is the ESG strategy. So how is the trade war, how is the global pandemic, how is digital era, how is ESG is actually impact to the international business. That are the key learnings or the mind maps that we have during that class. What are the other insights? These are the items that I took also on that class. How the global market works, what is the tariff and quota in that, what is the international business, why do firm going global and international, what needs to be addressed, and what is the strategy for the international business, the essentials of successful global firm, the multi-domestic industries versus global industries, and the 4 multinational strategies emerging from the integration responsiveness framework. I just quickly run through this, how the global market works. As I already touched, there's a producer surplus, consumer surplus, and also the competitive advantage and the absolute advantage among the countries. And the national comparative advantage, making the activity or initiating the activity or produce a good or service at a lower opportunity cost than any other nation. What is the tariff and quota? Tariff is actually a tax or duty imposed by the government on the imported and or exported goods, while quota is actually the restriction on the quantity or value of goods that can be imported or exported during the specific period. The main driver for the tariff and quota is the condition or situation of the consumer surplus, where the value of a good or service is an excess of what a consumer has to pay. And the other condition is actually the producer surplus. So that's for the tariff and quota. The other insights is on the international business, which is the transaction between parties. And international business is primarily based in a single country but acquire some minimum share in the resource or revenues from other countries. And it has a worldwide marketplace, and it transcends also national boundaries, and it's not committed to a single home country. Why do the firm go global and also go international? It's also one of the insights that we learn. It's because of the investment opportunities. The company would like to get higher marginal return compared to the domestic only. And they would like to get the financing opportunities, or in this case is obtaining the capital funding at a lower cost. The other reasons is acquiring resource and suppliers with more cost efficient, and seeking opportunities for growth, gain new ideas, as well as earn higher margins and profits at the end. The staging we see is actually coming from the domestic to the international business, which they pretty much still rely on the materials, on the growth of the revenues coming from the originating countries, and then goes to the multinational business, which is having much more countries that they present. And in terms of materials, in terms of the growth, is already equally shared to the other countries as well. But predominantly still rely on the originating countries, while on the very last stage, which is the global business, the companies is actually already have the source of materials, source of the human resource, source of the fund in multi countries, and they are not only relying on the originating countries anymore. What is the international strategy is also one of the interesting topics we learn, and then also how to overcome the risk and challenge due to the difference. There is a cross-cultural risk, there is a country risk, commercial risk, as well as the financial risk if we are going into the international market, definitely. And the interesting part is also the non-verbal communication. We understand that by having a different culture, different backgrounds, different mindset, in terms of the words, gestures, in terms of the characters, appearance, that can be a difference or varies amongst the countries. So these are also the challenge and risks that the company has to face when they are talking about the international business. We also touch about the essential of successful global firm. Here we see the strategic guidance is a must. International mindset is also a must. Willingness to commit a resource, strategic vision, as well as willingness to invest in human assets. Then we also understand that there's multi-domestic industries and global industries. Sample of the Coca-Cola in Japan, in Thailand, in Peru, where they actually have a very good campaign with the local flavor there. And KFC also, we see that they have a multi-story structures, which is distinct them, talking about the flavors of the chicken in each of the countries that they are present. On the other hand, the global industries, we know that this one is specifically talk about the, I may say, high-tech industry, like, for instance, the aerospace, cars, computers, chemicals. So they have a similar quality and standard, similar features wherever they are present in multi-countries. I took a sample Subaru, American Standard, and Toto as their competitors. Caterpillar, Komatsu, those are the samples of this global industry. There's four main strategies for the MNCs, whether it is replicating the home strategy, like what Toys R Us, Netflix, Starbucks is doing. On the other hand, there's a localization strategy. So they are trying to tweak a bit in terms of the packaging, campaign, communication. Like for instance here, I took a sample of the FMCGs in Indonesia and US, even though companies is from the same roots, but when they put it on the package, on the campaign, it's different. And then the global strategy. Global strategy meaning the MNCs actually putting very same quality and standard design in all countries, in all places where they're present. Samsung is one of it. Maybe take another sample is Dunkin' Donuts. Transnational strategy is the other strategies that we see for the MNCs, like what Coca-Cola in the region is doing, and also what IKEA in the Southeast Asia, and different also in China. That one is what we call transnational strategy. So all of that is actually the very interesting points, very interesting lessons, very useful insights that I learned during the global economy and international business. Hopefully you can enjoy and understand. Thank you. See you again in my next video.